Well, hello again. Happy President's Day. Welcome to another session of the 18th annual Transforming the Teaching and Learning Environment Virtual Conference. I'm Bob Hales. I'm your moderator. Don't forget, the Journal of Educators Online, JEO, is a sponsor this year. They have a plethora of refereed articles and goes back to 2004. You're bound to find something useful uh, to you. Take a look at it at thejeo.com. We have with us Ashley Babcock, who is a lead higher education strategist at Flying Cloud Solutions and professor of education at National University. She's got 20 years of experience in higher education. She coaches people and organizations on how to navigate change in the age of AI. Boy, that right there is a big job. She has expertise in leading remote teams, developing faculty and student support resources, and building academic programs to support adult learners in an online environment. As you can see, uh, her topic today is BAI Jill. Kind of slide over that. Keeping the human in the loop, mentoring online students in the age of AI. So, Ashley, let me turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Bob. I'm looking forward to talking with all of you today. As Bob said, we're going to talk through a framework called BAI Agile. And my focus is going to be the keeping the human in the loop, mentoring online students in the age of AI. As Bob touched on, I have a background for a long time in education, especially online education. I've been a dean, an associate dean, a director of academic success centers. So all of that kind of comes together. And I'm really focusing on this idea of mentoring students. So the guide on the side, coach mentality, especially through the age of AI. I'm going to share with you our framework that we've developed at Flying Cloud, BAI Agile, and it's a loop-based framework to help you flexibly work through AI. It can be used in a ton of different use cases. We use it a lot in associations, government contracting, education, nonprofits, but today we'll focus on using it with online students. Okay, so my promise to you, what you'll leave with is a use case for mentoring online students in the age of AI. We're going to talk through BAI Agile, which is a practical framework to guide students on how to critically discern AI usage in their academic work. You're going to hear me talk about critical discernment a lot. I feel like that is really one of the keys to get students to use AI ethically, responsibly, and as a thought partner, not as a replacement for themselves. And then we're going to talk through practical application of how you can use this with students. What we're going to do, so get ready to be in the chat in a few minutes. We're going to pick a specific issue that we're seeing with students, and we're kind of going to work through it with the BI AI Agile tenants. If we have time, maybe we'll do it with two or three. But I'm going to get a sense of which issues you all are seeing so I can make it really personal to everybody here. All right, you ready to go? All right, so one of the things that talking with a ton of educators that I've really seen, especially the last few years with the use of AI, is our job is the same, right? We have the same mission. We develop learner autonomy. We foster critical thinking, real world application, right? The idea of teaching hasn't changed, but the how has changed. drastically, I would argue. So that center has moved. So some of the shift is weight, right? So AI is now a daily learning companion. So we can't really shy away from it. We really need to teach when to use it, when not to, how to verify. And I would argue it's a lot like a lot of different technology solutions. Remember when Spark Notes came in? I have an English teaching background, so I remember teaching English and teaching Kate Chopin, and 15 papers would come in with the first sentence. Kate Chopin is an eminent antebellum writer. Well, that was the first sentence in Spark Notes. Students would grab that and run from there, right? So I would talk through it instead of shy away from it and tell them use cases of when to use Spark Notes as a tool instead of grabbing it and replacing their own thought. And I would argue that's the same thing we need to do with AI now is teach them how to use it, when not to, how to verify, and not have it replace them, but be a thought partner. The second shift really is tempo. There's much faster learning cycles now. There's more of that rapid demand. So we're really going to teach you with this framework how to use it as feedback loops and iteration. And the third shift, I would argue, is proof, right? The expectation now is we want a transparent process and credible evidence of how they're working through assignments, not just completion, right? That's one of the things we'll talk through is if a student just takes an assignment, plops it into ChatGPT and cuts and pastes it, it's flat. It's not what we're looking for because there's not that critical discernment and that thought. So how do we get students to utilize it in a way that helps enhance their ideas and doesn't replace them? All right, so talking a little bit about mentoring students. Uh, so when I talk about mentoring, I'm focused on the idea of building trust and presence at a distance through consistent touch points and responsiveness. Like I said earlier, I put the coach mindset on or the guide on the side, right? I would argue it's hard nowadays to be a sage on the stage in any modality with students because they don't want to be talked at. Especially with attention spans nowadays, there needs to be more doing than being talked at. But especially online, you need to flip that idea of talking and really engage students and have them do a lot of the thinking, the working through the process based, and you're really that guide. I mentor doctoral students fully online at National, so I use the metaphor a lot, marathon coach or just coach as a whole, and really trying to teach them the potholes or the training regimen so then they can iterate and do themselves. So mentoring really is about that building trust and presence. It's also about setting clear expectations for communication norms, timeline, what our expectations are, right? And this is big to me. Coach the process, not the draft. Or coach the process, not the product, with drafts, decisions, reflection, and evidence trail. And that's a lot what we're going to focus on today is how BAI Agile can help students with their process, help them think about their process, refine it, deepen it. So they're doing the actual writing, but the process becomes more refined with technology solutions like Notebook LLM or ChatGPT or some of these other AI products that can enhance but shouldn't replace. And then really that give timely actionable feedback with specific steps that students can apply immediately. So what are students learning to do, especially when they're being mentored, is that strengthen self-management, that learner autonomy, being independent, being that self-directed learner, make thinking visible. I feel like this goes back to math class when we were told to show our work, right? And I feel like now with especially AI showing that process and being transparent about how you thought through it is paramount. So make that thinking visible and be able to talk through with somebody your process. Reduce barriers proactively, right? So especially adding additional tools may help with brainstorming, outlining, strengthening writing skills, strengthening citing skills, strengthening information literacy. But students need to be that self-directed learner to reduce those barriers. And then really translate feedback into action. How many of you would agree with me that successful students know how to take feedback and learn from it? Right? I say that a lot to my doctoral students when they ask how long a process would take or the dissertation will take. I say to them, well, it depends on how you take feedback and how quickly we can iterate through drafts, right? Yes, exactly. Many struggle with that. So I think we'll talk a lot about that translating feedback into action. Because to me, that's where tools like Notebook LLM, ChatGPT can really help, is not writing for them, but helping them translate feedback into action. Okay, this is where I need you guys in the chat. Where have you felt the shift most in your world with students and their issues? Finding credible sources, writing their own papers, documenting process, using AI ethically, building verification habits. Like I said, we might be able to work through more than one, but let me get your thoughts so I can really tailor prompts and feedback to a few of these. Yeah, they don't write their own papers anymore, Kimberly. I see that a lot. I teach an advanced qualitative class, and it's super frustrating. It's almost like when SparkNotes came out to me, though, where, like I said, with the Kate Chopin example, but with the research methods, I get 15 papers that are citing Corbin and Strauss from 1985, grounded theory, when we're doing thematic analysis. And uh, it's as soon as I see that, like, oh, they are putting my assignment prompt straight in and just cutting and pasting out. So we'll kind of talk through how to work them through a thought process instead of just taking an assignment, putting it in, and getting the first input. Okay, so a lot of you guys are saying B. And then yes, the D, using AI ethically, really is going to come into a lot of what we discussed through. Okay, so we're going to talk through a lot of the writing their paper. And this comes naturally to me. Like I said, I started teaching as an English literature creative writing professor. Then I moved to graduate writing. Now I mentor doctoral students in the School of Education through their dissertation, and I teach and build a lot of the curriculum around the academic writing, research, and dissertation process. So you'll see naturally a ton of my examples go to outlining, paraphrasing, and synthesis of sources. And just use the chat if you want to see some other sources, examples tailored. I can on the fly kind of tailor as well. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Be AI Agile. This is a process that my husband and I came up with at Flying Cloud, and it's really to kind of think through how to work through, and you can use it through several technology solutions, but we gear it towards AI. And it's a loop, not a ladder. There's not one place to start. We are going to go linearly today, 1, 2, 3, 4, but I'll show you how you can start at different places with it. The way we developed this is we took the agile methodology, the agile project management. My husband does government contracting and works with a lot of government nonprofit associations. So they use agile project management a lot. So within that, he was working through how to utilize AI. So he took Agile project management. He's also an instructional designer. I use a lot of design thinking principles in my curriculum building as well. So we took Agile methodology, design thinking, chaos theory, and a few other theories like multiple minds, social learning change, interpretive knowing. So a few different things. We both come from creative writing and art backgrounds. So we took some of the creative ways of thinking, design thinking, and agile project management, and put that together in a 4-part process. So that's BAI Agile. And the first step is observe the chaos, right? So notice the patterns, problems, moments, tensions around you. And you'll hear us talk a lot about tension and naming the tension. Then the next is start lighter, move faster. So we're going to dream up a low stakes experiment with the help of AI. And then the third is act with intention. We're going to use the low stakes experiment, gather important data, define decisions to try to drive the purpose. And then the fourth, so important, and I feel like this is where students miss the mark sometimes, is that reflect and reframe, right? So make meaning of the outcome, critically discern what was given to them, and then let it guide their next step. So like I said, this is a loop, not a ladder. We are going to start in step 1, but you'll see you can start right. If you know the experiment, you could start at 2. If you want to start with a reflection from something else and then move, you can. So that is how we are going to do this. I'm going to jump in. So we'll use the writing student papers kind of as the frame as we go through it all. All right, so step 1 is observe the chaos. In the act of observation, the observer affects the observed. So what we're trying to do here is before you leap into action, you need to see what's happening. What's not working, what's shifting. So this is where we really want the student to start to think and shift from urgency to curiosity, right? So many of our students, right? Well, you guys tell me, how many of you guys know your students probably start the paper on the last day and do one iteration of an assignment? No, a lot of mine probably do that. And, with online learners, it's flexible. They have, especially adult learners, they have so many other competing priorities. So I get that life may only dictate for them to have a few hours. But what happens, right, is they are starting from a place of urgency. I have to get this done. What is the quickest way? Instead of a place from curiosity of, I have to get this done. What is the best way? Right? So that's where this framework is trying to shift them from that urgency to curiosity. Surface hidden dynamics, tension points. So maybe they don't understand the assignment fully, or there's a skill that they haven't quite developed yet. There could be a lot of tension points. We want to use AI to reflect possible problems, varied perspectives, unseen patterns. Thought partner, right? Not replacement for them. So if they don't have the teacher there to bounce ideas or a classmate, being able to use AI to do so instead of use it for them to create their work. So this is about investigating challenges creatively by changing the lens, the format, or the voice. So an optional prompt might be, so say we get a student, they're writing a paper. For this example, we'll say they're doing like a 5-page synthesis paper. Synthesis is really difficult for students, right? I've noticed that all the way from undergrad up to doctoral, because it requires them to understand several sources and then make meaning of how those sources fit together under a specific topic. And that It's an important skill, all right? It's necessary. I tell my dissertation students they're not going to be able to get through that process without having that synthesis skill, but it is a difficult one for them. Also, though, AI is garbage at synthesizing because it cannot critically discern, right? It will put things together and say taken together or this synthesis. So it uses words that are synonymous with synthesis, but synthesis isn't just a word, it's an action, right, of that discerning material and putting it together. And you can't replace that human part of it to get good synthesis. So let's say they're doing a synthesis paper, they may start with, I'm not quite sure how to start this assignment. And they may put the assignment prompt in and say, help me identify specific steps to tackle this assignment, right? So instead of cutting and pasting the assignment and asking it to write, naming that tension, right? And having it help them come up with a process or naming specific parts of the assignment they may not understand and saying, I feel stuck when asked to synthesize. What do I need to do to better understand synthesis? Right. So we're moving again from that urgency to the curiosity to the how. How do I tackle this? And again, if they're in urgency, the student may say, well, I just need to get this done. And my argument when I hear that from students is yes, but if you get a paper done that is not a strong paper and you have to rewrite anyway to get a better grade, or if the teacher doesn't allow you to rewrite, is it really worth it if you've now gotten the lower grade or you don't know how to do the skill that you need to be successful later on in this program? Right, so trying to get them to understand the need to build skills and being curious and using it in a context so they can learn is paramount. A few other prompts they can use here could be, I feel stuck when asked to synthesize. Help me identify what that tension might be and give me a metaphor that captures it. So they can use this process-based, they can use it kind of a narrative-based, but you notice we're not having them write it for them. So that's the shift. So say they did the prompt, give me a process to help with this assignment, right? So now they have the process. Say ChatGPT gave them five or six different steps to go through, outline, how to work through synthesis. Now we're at step 2. Start lighter, move faster. Fail early, fail often, but always fail forward. I love that quote. It's one of my favorites. And I think that's what we're really trying to teach them to do here. Design small, low-risk experiments. And you may ask a student here to say, okay, maybe give an example of strong synthesis, and then tell them to cut and paste the assignment straight in and ask ChatGPT to synthesize. And take the good synthesis and look at what ChatGPT gave. Because if they can discern and go, oh, okay, that is not what's needed. I need it to look like this. I need it to be ideas put together clearly. Then that's a quick experiment that then they can go back and start to work towards how they can use it to help them create. Here, done isn't the goal, visible is. As visible is where growth begins. And this is where we really want to move from interactivity to evidence up front. So again, going back and iterating to them, well, if you do a quick cut and paste, but then you have to rewrite 6, 7, 8 times, is it really that much quicker? So getting them to then act with intention, right? And use ChatGPT in a way that may help them. So here they may turn around and say, create a rough mock-up of the steps I'll follow to complete this assignment. So I can ask my professor if I'm on target with my approach. Or I love this one for Notebook LLM. Notebook LLM will create podcasts for them. So they could ask it, create a dialogue where I'm asking questions to the author of the articles to get a better understanding of how to synthesize. So Kimberly, you do love those podcasts. I do too. So moving them towards how can you use this for you to skill build and better understand, right? Because skill building and competency is the key. We don't need AI to prove it can write an assignment. We need the student to, so they can use these tools to deepen their understanding. So those are two that I really like. And they may also ask, I need help synthesizing. I'm a visual learner. I give my students a synthesis matrix. I have a student that it doesn't work for them. They are visual, but it's confusing to them. So they asked ChatGPT, I need to synthesize. I'm a visual learner. This synthesis matrix does not work for me. Put it in. What are some other alternatives that I can use to help me better visualize? Right. So then they start to get some ideas. And they were given an AI based, I forget which one it is now, but it's a visual program that you can start to map and show all the interrelation of the articles. And that's helping them more. Then they put that up on the screen and then they start to take notes on their smaller screen and outline to the ideas, right? But one size doesn't fit all, right? I try to give students a lot of resources, but what works for one doesn't always work for the other. So this is where they can then articulate that and say, hey, I'm a visual learner. This doesn't work for me. Give me some alternatives. So once you have that small stakes experiment, then we're going to iterate. Then we're going to act with intention, right? So there's no failure, only feedback. I say that to my students all the time, right? Well, you gave me a ton of feedback. Yes, because it's meant to move you forward, right? So let's work through it. So then because students don't know what they don't know, right? So feedback is meant to help fill in those gaps. So for the act with intention, we want to decide what good looks like for them, for the assignment, right? Measure learning and progress, not just surface outcomes. This is key, right? So surface outcome is getting the assignment done. Learning and progress for writing might be, say for a research paper, learning is information literacy, being able to critically discern sources, being able to discern which topics or themes are the most critical, being able to outline and create paragraphs that flow, being able to synthesize and then paraphrase, quote accordingly within the style that is used, right? So there's a lot of different learning and outcomes that need to occur in the writing of the assignment. It's not just getting the assignment done, right? So trying to break it down to students about specific skills. So like I said, I do that a lot with my students where I will say, okay, and I don't call out AI usage a lot. Instead, I call out process. So if I get in my literature review class, they have to do a synthesis paper before they do the larger lit review paper. And in that, going back to what Kimberly was saying with students don't write their own anymore, I'll get 10, 15 papers that look almost exactly the same. And instead of going and saying, this looks like AI, I'll start to pull out and say, the key outcome for this paper, the key skill is synthesis. This is not being synthesized right now. You may use the word. However, this is what the process looks like. So I'll go back to the process. I'll go back to the synthesis matrix. And then I'll walk through. A lot of times we'll do a quick video, or I have some set videos of what it looks like to work through a synthesis matrix. And I'll just put in this process and say, hey, you could use ChatGPT to do X. Make sure you are not cutting and pasting the assignment. And in my classes, I do have a AI transparency statement saying that if they do use AI, they are supposed to be transparent, call it out, and say what their process is. A lot of students do not at first. They try to put the paper in, but then if they get a video back where I walk them through, okay, this is not synthesis. Here's how you can work through a process with several tools, ChatGPT being one of them, to be able to synthesize. Then I've noticed a lot of the students will start to work through that process because I've already called out the work that ChatGPT has done is not synthesis, right? Without calling them out with the usage. And that's just my process right now. But I feel like it takes out some of the defense of being caught, right? And instead focuses more, it takes them towards the skill needed and the process to develop that skill. So some prompts you can do here can be take my process for working through this assignment and turn it into a checklist or a rubric to help me evaluate the process as I go. Right? Or something like, here's what I've learned so far. Help me evaluate next step options based on the assignment. So those are some things that you can do to work through this piece with students. And then the big thing here is mocking something up lowers the bar, right? It's a draft. We're getting feedback. And I think that's the important thing for students to really know is we're trying to develop and build skills. So do something, try your best, work through it. Then once you get the feedback, you can improve and build upon it. And then with it, BA Agile, the big thing here is they don't need a solution. They need a quick experiment. Don't aim for success, aim for feedback, and then let what they learn shape what comes next. All right, next one is my favorite, reflect and refrain. I'm always big on continuous improvement, and I really try to get students to see it that way as well. We do not learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on experience. So what they're really trying to do here is decide what looks good for what good looks like for them, for the professor, right? For the degree, right? So managing and setting and defining expectations. So if a student does not know what good synthesis looks like, it's easy for them to cut paste into ChatGPT, ask it to synthesize and take it because they can't critically discern what good synthesis is. And that's why I think a process like this is so important, where if you give them an example and say, okay, here's good synthesis, now cut and paste in a chat GPT and ask it to synthesize, see what happens, and start to work through that and discern, well, look, here it's the melding of ideas. In the chat GPT example, it says when synthesizing, and then just gives a vague idea. And so trying to get them to critically discern, and this, some students are going to get easier than others, but teaching them that reflecting, that iteration, continuously working towards building the skill, right? And a metaphor I use a lot with my students is writing is it's muscle building. It's just like any sport, right? Insert sport of your choice into the metaphor, running, biking, football. The more you practice, the more you're going to get your writing muscles, right? But practice is good readers or good writers, right? The more that they read strong critical work and can reflect on it, which is why I love Notebook LLM and the podcast too, because they can have somebody teach it back to them instead of just passively reading. But the more that they are reading and reflecting upon strong work, practicing the skills the proper way, which is why I think it is so important. And I think ChatGPT can be helpful, Notebook LLM, Claude, Gemini, Copilot, whichever tools they use. But I think LLMs can be useful in helping them see what a good outline looks like or what paraphrasing can look like, or giving them a process. I need to learn paraphrasing. Give me a process for learning this more deeply. So, coming back here, what they're really trying to do is reflect upon that. So, measure learning and progress, not just the outcomes, right? So, outcomes are important and we want them to get to synthesis, right? To be competent in writing skills. So for this example, we'll say get to be competent in synthesis. However, if a student, and I'm going to use Bloom's for a second because that's where I'm comfortable. But if a student is at a level 1 or 2 at the beginning of the assignment with synthesis, but they get to a level 4 by the end of it, that's a ton of progress. Right? Or even if they go from a 1 to a 3, that's a ton of progress. Now, they still have a ways to go to reach competency in it. But you can't expect them to go from 1 to 6 overnight. Like that's a huge leap in competency. So teaching them to measure that progress and then reflect on the process and keep doing it. Right? So if I see students get way closer in synthesis or analyzing, using a meal plan, paragraph structure, right? Insert writing skill here, then I'll really stop and have them focus on that process, right? Okay, what have you done so far? Let's kind of capture it. And this is where an LLM can be really helpful because they can put that in and say, okay, now I need to build on this progress. Here's one draft. I need to get further in my synthesis, suggest a process for doing that. And then this way they're making decisions that reflect their values and goals, not just AI fluency. So they're working towards that overall goal of increasing their writing. So for this, some of the prompts that they can use can be here's what happened, help me write a reflection on what I learned and how I may shift direction. They may say, I have instructor feedback, help me reflect on how I can apply this feedback to upcoming assignments. You can even upload the feedback, right? What questions should I be asking myself based on this feedback? That one's such a good one, right? Because again, students don't know what they don't know. So if we're having them use an LLM as a thought partner and having it teach them how to think, how to question, how to critically discern, um, then they can do the human work of building those skills. And that's the important shift. And we're not going to reach every student. We're still going to have some of those students that cut and paste the assignments no matter what. But if we can really try to verbalize and teach them a process, because most students really want to do good work, they just may not know the process. So building this into the writing, revising, feedback process can help them build those skills and build a process for those skills. Okay, now to you guys. So, next steps, implementing a process like this, implementing the BAA Agile into teaching discussion with students. One, you want to start with kind of developing a plan of how to frame it with students. So to me, my quick sidebar is about storytelling, right? So a lot of the BAA Agile framework comes with, like I said, the design thinking, the ways of knowing, the ways of being, and a lot of that goes into storytelling and processing verbally. So I know I like to process things verbally. I like to talk with people. I like a thought partner, but sometimes there may not be that person there to talk, or somebody may not have that emotional bandwidth. So working through a process like this, using an LLM as a mirror and as a thought partner can be really helpful. Uh, for a lot of students, especially online adult students, that online piece sometimes can be lonely. I know I do a lot of research for online doctoral students, and that's a big piece in attrition is that it's hard for them to find somebody to talk through these things with, right? Friends and family may not understand. Sometimes it's a really specialized field. Teachers have a finite amount of time. They may not feel comfortable going to their classmates. So they can use an LLM as that mirror and thought partner where they may turn what they did into a story and then say, reflect this back, right? So a prompt they may use is put in a reflection. Based on this reflection, suggest two different ways I might proceed. One that scales the idea, one that pivots into a different direction. They may talk through their process and say, based on this process, recommend to me next steps and how to improve on my next assignment. So it really becomes this mirror. You can kind of think through on how to frame it with students. That's a lot of how I frame it is let's talk through, like I just broach the subject and say to them, how are you using AI? And sometimes if they kind of look at me, I'll say, well, I could tell you how I think you're using it with your paper use. Do you want to start there or would you like to tell me? And a lot of the times then they'll kind of talk through it. But then I frame it to them is, well, let's make sure you're using it as a thought partner and a way to mirror your ideas and amplify them so you can see the good pieces, you can see the process, and let's not use it to replace you because at the end of the day, our academic integrity policy is work has to be done by you, not the AI. We're not grading the AI. So let's find a way on how you can use that as a mirror, as a thought partner, as a way to amplify your ideas, as a way to build process. And then I model a ton for students. And a lot of times I model this more informally. I don't go through and say, we're using the BAI Agile framework. We're going to start with step one. A lot of times I just kind of model some of the prompts and the thinking around it. So I might say, okay, you're stuck on the assignment. You started on Sunday, it's due on Sunday. You don't have a lot of time. Instead of cutting and pasting the assignment straight into ChatGPT, let's ask it. I'm stuck. I don't have a ton of time to do this, but I want to do it myself and I want to do it well. Here's the assignment. Where do I start? Because sometimes that's all you need is a plan to get unstuck. And so I may model that for students and tell them to practice. I model the synthesis example that I've been giving with putting in synthesis, having them cut and paste so they can discern that it doesn't synthesize well for them, but then they will ask it for steps to get strong synthesis. It's much better at giving steps and process, right? Because what does AI not do? It does not critically discern. Right. So that's the big piece. I told you I'd use that that phrase the whole presentation because I feel like that's really the key to that human in the loop is getting students to go, okay, it can help with a process, it can help with steps, it can help me move through things, but it cannot replace me in the way I think and the way I put information, ideas, and create them in writing. Um, Another thing you can do is require an AI statement of why, how, if used to process and develop work. Like I said, I put in my courses that if they use AI, they do need to do a quick reflection on how it was used and what process they used with it. And then model that reflection. If I teach more one-to-one asynchronously, and I do a lot of synchronous meetings with my doctoral students, so I model one-on-one, but you can model as a class as well, and model that reflection, that moving through it, so students really see. It's one thing to say that failing forward is okay, but modeling and seeing that you can start an idea, scrap an idea, reflect on it, iterate, pivot, move forward, and showing them what that looks like creates that safety in doing it. So those are a few ways that I use my BAI Agile framework with online students, and these are a few ways that you can use it. But we are right at the 15-minute mark, so I'm going to stop and have you guys ask questions or talk through ways that you could use this next.
Hey, I really like this. This was super helpful, and I am thinking about. I had my students do a discussion about AI and ethical uses for AI and all the things, and I haven't introduced an official. I'm sort of in the chaos still. I know I should be way past it, but I'm not. Um,
No,
but I am
no
thinking.
right place to be right now.
Yeah, so I had them summarize like what their different groups decided. I'm going to share that out, but I think I am going to share a video and just say, having learned about it through professional development sessions and talked about it and seen what y'all think about it. These are things I do think it would be a good thought partner, and I do like the idea of them being able to use it to at least, I love asking for help so you know where to start on something because there's so many students are like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, I've already given you all the instructions. It's already step one, step two, step three. I don't know what else to do for you. But
And
AI,
that's where I think it's so helpful because you can have them put in any metaphor or tone, right? Explain this to me how you would explain a recipe. Explain this to me how you would, explain in a manual. So that way we don't have to change our modality.
yeah, I'm definitely doing this. This is genius.
I'm glad you like it. I'm gonna put the website link in here too, because that has a lot of the steps. I have a workbook and a starter kit too. So um, if you want to email me, I'm happy to share resources as well. put my email in here. Other questions, ideas on how to use this? Anything else?
Apparently not. So, yeah, we're out of time anyway. So, Ashley, thank you for taking the time to do this. I think it's good things we can all try out. So,
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great. Have a great rest of your conference, everybody. I'm looking forward to some more sessions.